The game started with Ian Bradshaw bowling to Marcus Trescothick with Courtney Brown using the gloves. In 2004, these were not your biggest stars in the world, but they did give us one of the best finals in ICC history. You may have heard of Marcus Trescothick, he's a pretty well-known cricketer, but if you know the other two, you're a Champions Trophy truther. While Collis King and Carlos Brathwaite were the main remember the name type players who gave West Indies a trophy, Brown, a backup keeper with 66 internationals, yet somehow played in one World Cup and two Champions trophies along that time. And Bradshaw, a left-arm seamer who played one more international to make it to 67. Trescothick is still talked about in cricket for many different reasons. But Bradshaw and Brown, if you know about them at all, it is literally this one moment. And what a moment. When the West Indies pulled off a tail-end heist to take the Champions Trophy away from England. Do you want AMAs to connect on live calls with me or engage with our dynamic Discord community? Maybe you want ad-free content, early podcast episodes, or to stay informed through my emailer. Well, if you support us on Patreon, you get all of that plus a little bit of behind the scenes, how the sausage is made stuff. Our deepest thanks go to everyone who has supported us on Patreon so far, but the more people who do means the more content we can make. This game was 21 years ago. If you want to know how far back that was, in those days, Chris Gale had working hamstrings and was the young pup you placed in the covers. This was not a battle of the Titans. In the previous World Cup, neither side had actually made it to the Super Sixes, and suddenly they were both in the finals of this Champions Trophy. England had really struggled to be a force in white ball cricket since, well, the balls stopped being red. West Indies had a great side throughout the 80s and 90s, but somehow could never get it together to actually win a major tournament. This was not a major tournament, and this was not the great West Indian sides we'd seen before. Their endless bowling run had finally gone dry. And this tournament, or this final, was not met with incredible excitement, even though England made the final in England. Limited overs cricket was taken less seriously there than most other places. This tournament had not won hearts and minds, and it was not in the heart of summer, but at the end of September. And because of the time of year, when Lara won the toss, he decided to send England in. Ian Bradshaw and his medium-fast southpaw swing took the new ball, and he struck twice. England were 43 for 2, and they kept losing wickets. One from a ridiculous run out of Andrew Strauss by a fetus named Dwayne Bravo, but that made sense, especially in the years to come. But what didn't was that Wavell Hines was bowling and taking wickets. If you've heard of this player, it will be almost entirely as a batter. In fact, he would average 7 balls per match bowling in one-day internationals. He wasn't a bowler or an all-rounder or even a part-timer, but they kept him on because for this day it was working. He ripped, although that is almost definitely not the right word, out the English middle order. The only player he couldn't dismiss was Marcus Trescothick. In the aftermath of England's white ball revolution, the hard-slapping lefty was forgotten. But when you look back at his advanced stats, he's not that far off Johnny Bairstow or Jason Roy. In this innings, he found a way to score boundaries while the rest of the team could not. And to be honest, that is what he was always known for. Back when he played for Somerset, it wasn't that he made a lot of runs, it's that he made runs when no one else could. In this knock, he made more than half of England's runs off the bat. And West Indies gifted 23 runs from extras. 15 of those were just from whites. This means that England's third top scorer was West Indian bowlers, but it wasn't one of them who got him out. He was caught short when running. England got themselves out that way 3 times in this innings. And all in all, they had an average total, 217. Certainly nothing special even for that period. The wicket was still doing a lot, and England had a very good bowling attack with Darren Gough as their leader, plus Steve Harmison and Freddie Flintoff. But the West Indies had a very good batting lineup. The destroyer in the first innings was probably their worst specialist batter. Opening was a young Chris Gale. At 3 was Ramnaresh Sarwan. At 4, the great Brian Lara. With another incredible player, Shivnarine Chandrapal, coming in next, and then finally they had Dwayne Bravo. That's a lot of batting talent. And unfortunately for the West Indies, they were all gone. And it wasn't just Harmison and Flintoff doing the damage, because England copied the West Indies method and they gave the ball to another very occasional bowler, Marcus Trescothick. He would bowl the 18th, 19th and 20th overs of his entire career, where he would take a wicket, the 4th and final one of his entire 123 match career. Throughout that career, as an ODI player, he averaged 2 deliveries per game. Also, imagine making 100 runs, more than half the runs off the bat for your team, and taking a wicket and still not becoming player of the match. One advantage England had over the West Indies is they had multiple dibbly-dobblies. There's always lots of them around in English cricket. So Paul Collingwood's medium pace added 2 more wickets along the way. And England had the final in the bag when Chandrapal was out with a score 147 for 8. That is when the 2 Bajans from Barbados, Brown and Bradshaw, came together. Yes, it was a real-life attack of the killer bees. At this stage, Courtney Brown had played 28 matches for the West Indies, and his top score was 26. In this lineup, he was batting down at number 9. Even by 2004, it was pretty damn odd for an ODI keeper to be batting that low. His partner, Ian Bradshaw, is often called an all-rounder, but he averaged 21 in first-class cricket for his entire career, and at that point, he had 24 runs in 12 ODIs. Neither were batters, and both had earned their positions in the order. And behind them, there was no insurance, because it got a hell of a lot worse. At number 11 was Corey Collimore, and he could not bat. Not at all. So all the runs had to be scored in this partnership. The record for a West Indian 9th wicket partnership at this stage was 68 runs. These 2 Bajans needed 71. Let's be very clear. England thought they had already won this game. But this partnership found the boundaries, and they were ahead of the rate, so they could block out the good balls and attack those they wanted. And the balls were getting soft, and the England bowlers were getting frustrated. It's worth saying that the West Indies also had an incredible slice of luck when Freddie Flintoff went straight and full, and for some reason, Courtney Brown was not given out. This was before DRS, but the early Hawkeye suggests that it was about as plumb as you get. The West Indies got lucky in other ways too. Like balls would squeak through the ring fielders and then just seem to get more pace the further they went. But some of their attacking shots raced off the bat and they beat boundary riders. And it was also pretty clear that England were completely and utterly lost. Michael Vaughan went from a captain on the verge of winning a trophy to a perpetual disappointed dad pose. Each boundary was followed by him looking more and more bereft of ideas. He had 3 strike bowlers and none of them could break through. And in the end, it was Bradshaw's square drive that won the game with 7 balls left and, of course, 2 wickets in hand. This bowling attack led by Wavell's Wobblers and the batting lineup with 2 Bajan tail-enders had done something that teams with Garner, Marshall, Greenwich, Haynes, Richardson, Ambrose, Walsh and Richards had not done since 1979. They held up an ICC trophy. Courtney Brown, Ian Bradshaw. Remember those names. South Africa did not choke. In 1906, South Africa needed 284 to win. They'd only passed 100 in half their test innings at that point. At 105 for 6, it seemed impossible. They fought back but lost another flurry, leaving 45 to win with 1 wicket in hand. At the crease was Dave Norse, who was a capable batter, and he was joined by Percy Sherwell, the only debutant captain keeper at number 11 in Test cricket history. And these 2 were doing it. A huge crowd in South Africa cheered on every single run. With 8 left, Sherwell edged between slips for 4. Straight after, Norse ran a 3. England bowled 3 dots. All they needed was 1 wicket to tie. Instead, a leg side full toss, boundary, game over. This was Test cricket's first 1-wicket win, and their last partnership was a record for almost 100 years. But it was also something else. This was the first Test match that South Africa had ever won. Buy my book on Amazon, Overthrowing Cricket's Empire.